The other day, we in speaking with the 4 women who were up here, I made a comment that I'm not really comfortable with because you might take it the wrong way, and so it was the comment where we were talking about traditional dress and kind of traditional clothing, and I was comparing it to what we see here at Penn State. And by the way, I'm just going to talk for a few minutes, and then you guys are just hanging out here for a sec, all right? And I was mentioning clothing styles here at Penn State, in particular among women, and I made that comment about just how I'm like really, when I walk down the streets at night, like I'm just really kind of like this, and just really kind of careful about it, And I think I don't want to mischaracterize that, because I think it's really important that you have an understanding of where I'm coming from on this. First off, I'm more progressive than in these matters. I'm really progressive. The last thing women need is for more men to be telling you what to do with your bodies and how to dress and one thing after another. There's far too many men today who seem to think that it's their job to do that. And so my fear was that my comments kind of came out of that, from that place, and I don't want them to come out of that place, because the point is, you all, for women, you make a decision about your bodies and whatever you want to do. You can be pretty certain I'm more progressive or looking further forward than you could ever be, or that you are currently. And so, for me, I think that where I get to this place as a sociologist, whereby people do whatever can do and should do whatever they want to do in terms of how people dress and how people present themselves and so on. Nothing bothers me at all. And I've traveled to enough places in the world and had enough experiences of people and living differently than me that I'm cool with it. It doesn't really matter. I've been on nudist beaches, and it's awesome, man. I think that we have gotten to this place, however, where we get lost in the sociology of life. And in my concern always as a teacher is that a lot of us are following what's happening around us with the idea that we're making our own decisions, and we're our own principled decisions, and in fact we're just kind of following what other people around us are doing. And I think that's a message of mine that comes out in this class. It should come out in this class a lot, that we're not nearly as free as many of us would like to believe. So if you think you're freely choosing to live in X or Y way, and everybody around you is living in the same way, then you're not freely choosing it. And it's kind of like if your God hates all the same people who you hate, then your God is probably made up in your mind. It's not a real God. So I think that matters. And I think that a lot of times, we live in a world where this has not always been true, but it certainly is true in the modern age, where it is still a world that is shaped by and empowered by men more so than women. And if you have the idea that that's not the case, that things have equaled out and so on, well, I would just kind of suggest that you do kind of a deep dive into a lot of things. But there's so many places where we just find ways to strip power away from women. And And sometimes they're really kind of odd. And so, like, for example, if I ask, I'm not going to do it, but I could do it. I could ask a woman in here, hey, when's the last time you had a pimple? And, okay, and what'd you do with that pimple? Like, how long did you have it? And was it painful? And, was there pus? Like, did you pay attention to it? Did it bother you? Was it like, tell me about it, right? And it wouldn't be a really big thing because it's kind of a pimple. If I said, did you have an ingrown hair? Did you have, like, where was it? It was on my leg. Oh, well, really? Well, how was that? Like, was it painful? What'd you do about it? How long did you have it? An ingrown hair is a natural thing. Yeah, I had one on my chin. I had one on my leg. I had one on my arm. It's natural. Everybody gets ingrown hairs. Every human being does. And, every woman bleeds. So if I ask you, when's the last time you bled? Not every woman bleeds, because some women don't bleed, but you start at a certain age and then you end at a certain age. And not everybody does, but most people do. Well, when did you start and when did you end? And when's the last time you bled? And how long was it? And was it painful? Was it like, okay, and bleed? Okay, you have your menses, your period, whatever it is, right? My wife says bleeding, so, because he's like, I'm not going to deny that there's a lot of blood involved in this, so this is it. And so, well, how was that for you? Like, let's talk about it. Well, a lot of women would, in here, including, would be really reluctant to talk about that. You could talk about the ingrown hair, you could talk about the pimple, but to talk about bleeding would be like, I'm not sure if I'm comfortable talking about that. Well, hang on, but they're all natural. Bleeding for a woman is as natural as an ingrown hair on your arm or a pimple on your chin. So, like, where's the discomfort come from? Because if this was a world that was created by women, and women were in power from the very beginning, trust me, that no woman would have a problem talking about bleeding, about their period, about their menses. No, nobody would, because it would just be like, this is it. And if men came along and said, like, oh, I'm uncomfortable talking about that, well, you wouldn't. Men would be shunned. Because, like, listen, this is natural. This is who we are. This is what it is. And so the norm would be bleeding once a month. But in fact, what happens is we take something like that happens with women, and then it becomes this other thing. So if I just take any one woman in here and I just start asking you that question, I give you the microphone and say, like, hey, can you just tell me about your bleeding? Like, it would be, some of you would be like, okay, that's really cool. How many women in here would just be like, oh yeah, I'll talk about it, whatever. That's not even close to half. But if I asked you, hey, talk about the ingrown hair on your arm, how many would say, like, oh man, I'm really embarrassed by it. I don't want to talk about that. That's a personal thing. I don't talk about that with anybody. It's like, all the things. And so this is the way I think as a sociologist constantly and I'm constantly trying to understand my own place in the world and my own way of thinking. And where do I get my ideas from? And why do I have these ideas? And, are they progressive ideas? Are they backward ideas? And where are they from? And how many of them come from the fact that I'm an American? Like, just having this conversation is very much the fact that I'm an American, right? This would not happen in the Emirates. And this would not happen in Pakistan. But here, it's happening here because this is the U.S. and I can talk about this. And I'm a sociologist and it's what I do. And so my take is always that we question ourselves and try to question, like, where our assumptions come from, where our thoughts come from, where do our feelings come from, and what does that mean, right? When we're really trying to think that we're really autonomous and thoughtful beings,